I don't know what Christine Noem loves more, embezzling government funds, Americans being shot in the streets, or extramarital affairs, but today she was questioned about all three of her favorite topics before the United States Senate. And I'm sure you can imagine how it went. There was silence, panicked non-answers, and slurred statements that embarrassed not only Christine, but also a stumbling and very sick Donald Trump. Just moments ago, Noem was questioned not only by Senator Sheldon Whitehouse, who opened with the affair question, and yes, we'll get to the image in a moment, but also by Senator Tom Tillis of North Carolina, who brought attention to an issue the mainstream press has almost forgotten. How? Kristi Noem continues to bleed and dismantle FEMA because, frankly, she doesn't seem to care about American lives. I want to start with the affair, then move on to how she was pressed by a Republican senator who is now calling for her resignation. But yes, let's begin first with the affair itself.
Could you explain this?
Sir, I'm looking at a picture of an interior. Looks like a bedroom.
Of an airplane?
Yes, sir.
You're not familiar with that?
These photos are not accurate. If you're referring to the airplanes that the Department of Homeland Security has purchased and are purchasing, we're using them for long-range command and control aircraft that is dictated in statute by Congress for the Department of Homeland Security to have a plane.
Luxury jet with a bedroom in it?
Yeah, we used a 737. I've been on it once, but it is being used by other administration officials, and it is used for command and control flights for the department. The department has found that in purchasing our aircraft, that we will save the taxpayers hundreds of millions of dollars.
Does it have a bedroom in it?
In fact, we spent $1.442 billion on ICE deportation flights last year.
Does it have a bedroom in it?
I believe it's being refurbished and not having a bedroom in it. So it is being refurbished.
Part of the room. What kind of deportee justifies being flown out of the country in a luxury jet with a bedroom and accommodations like this?
There are aircraft being purchased that will be utilized for executive air travel and for deportations.
Well,
if you remember, in the past, we have used jets of this size and this configuration for deportations in the past. If you remember,
in this configuration, by this configuration, you mean with a bedroom and luxury accommodations like this, you've used for deportations. Is that true?
Sir, we have 737s that are being purchased by the department to replace contracts that we have on ICE deportations. That's what they're going to be used for. And in fact, the Coast Guard is the only entity within the Department of Homeland Security that has jets at this point in time. They had two G5s that were 20 to 25 years old that are being replaced so that they can continue to serve our Coast Guard and our military for years to come.
About these aircraft. They've been reported as saying, although they don't want to say publicly this, but individuals described as senior administration officials have described these airplane purchases as the world's worst deal and an abuse of federal funds. Can you tell me what the Republicans on this committee who voted for what I call the billionaires bill that gave you the money to buy these jets knew about your plans to acquire luxury jets when they voted for that money?
The dollars for these airplanes was appropriated by Congress. In fact, it's mandated from Congress and rules that you've given us that we need to have a long-range command and control aircraft that will seat up to 17 people in the Department of Homeland Security for national security purposes. We are complying with the law. Those planes are being refurbished and will be utilized for that, and they'll be utilized by members of the administration and other components.
First,
they will also cut our costs, sir, by almost 40%. We are saving the taxpayer 40% by purchasing our own aircraft and operating them rather than being susceptible to the contracts that they have today.
May I have an extra 2 minutes to fill in the filibuster there?
I'll give you 30 seconds beyond the 44 seconds you got now.
Truthfully answer a question for the record about your role in stopping the civil rights investigation into the Minnesota shootings?
Sir, I don't know what you're talking about. I did not stop any investigations whatsoever.
Will you testify truthfully if you get a QFR?
Yes, I testify truthfully. I did not
And will you
stop.
testify in the District of Columbia federal court contempt proceeding?
Sir, I do not know what you're referencing, and I would hope for some context.
The federal district court contempt proceeding related to the deportation, contrary to a court order, of individuals to Venezuela. Will you testify in that proceeding?
Sir, I think that you're referencing something that I have a gag order to, but I can certainly follow up with you.
So if you're not familiar with the Kristi Noem and Corey Lewandowski story, I honestly wish I were you and didn't have to picture what may have been going on in that bedroom inside that retrofitted, what was it, $80 to $90 million jet that Christine uses and abuses at your expense. But Corey Lewandowski is a special government contractor, right? He's classified as a special government employee, which means he doesn't have to file the same ethics disclosures. He doesn't have to follow the same rules, and he can massively benefit from his position as essentially Christie's right hand. It's been widely reported that the two are having an affair, that it's the worst kept secret in Washington, and that Lewandowski has been leveraging his position with NDH to rake in enormous sums of money by promising and delivering contracts to Palantir and other data surveillance and tracking companies. In the process, he's allegedly making sure the worst backers of this administration, the oligarchs who stand to gain massively from Kristi Noem opening what critics describe as concentration camps, are working hand in hand with him. This is the same Lewandowski who reportedly threatened to fire the pilot of that luxury jet Christine Noem flies around in with her lover, all because he forgot her special blanket. There have even been reports suggesting that blanket may not have been the only point of tension in that bedroom that led to the threat to fire the pilot. But yes, that's one of the many issues Christine Noem couldn't give a straight answer about in the Senate. And it didn't stop there. As I mentioned, Tom Tillis, who is now calling for Noem's resignation, also pressed her hard. And her response? It wasn't good.
We just want numbers. We want 1,000 a day, 6,000 a day, 9,000 a day because numbers matter, right? No, they don't matter. Quality matters, not quantity, quality. And what we've seen is a disaster. Under your leadership, Ms. Noem, a disaster. What we've seen is innocent people getting detained that turn out are American citizens. I could talk about the culture that's been created here with Stephen Miller aiding and abetting. I heard first reports that he was the one that said it was a domestic terrorist situation where 2 people lost their lives in Minneapolis. I've heard that report. Maybe you can refute it. I don't know that we'll have time for you to respond because I'm giving you a performance evaluation here. I'm not looking for a response. And I'm saying, Ms. Noem, that time after time after time I've been disappointed. But before I get back to looking at the vicious people that did this damage to these families, I want to talk a minute about FEMA. You have a policy right now that anything over $100,000 has to go through your desk for approval. I asked my staff, because I'm a management consultant, I don't try to do cheap shots in here, but the facts do not lie. This is your administration for FEMA response. This is President Trump's first administration. Which one would you like to have? If you're a state that has a $60 billion disaster, your biggest disaster in South Dakota that I can tell that when you were an elected official was about $500 million. So 1/100th of this single storm where thousands of people are hurting in North Carolina and you're just barely catching up. This is what competent FEMA leadership looks like. This is what incompetent FEMA leadership looks like. And people are hurting in Western North Carolina from the most significant storm they've ever experienced. This is what we need more of. I'm convinced you can't do it. If you're requesting a review of $100,000 and up, then it begs the question, why? Why would you be involved in that? Why would that be a policy? And in a minute, I'll ask about some people that are involved, some special government employees. Why are they involved in it? Thank you.
Senator,
no.
that $100,000 only had to do.
And I will hold the clock until I finish.
Okay.
The bottom line is I've done the analysis. And you can say whatever you want to. I've worked with a Democrat governor. I've worked with a Republican governor. I've worked with fiscal research. We have people contacting my office now to get the information to better understand the failure of this department. You failed at FEMA, and in fact, if I get to it, actually, why don't I cover this right now? The Homeland Security Act of 2002 expressly prohibits the Secretary of Homeland Security from restricting or diverting FEMA resources from the agency's mission. Based on your disaster response, the chart that I just showed you, I have reason to believe that you're violating the law, either knowingly or unknowingly. So I'll be asking and getting a submission to the record, submitting a question for the record, what the total amount of FEMA reimbursements are currently being held by DHS, awaiting for final approval. Held by DHS, awaiting for final approval for an agency that you should not be obstructing the disbursement on. I'm going to give you time to answer to it under penalty of perjury so that we can get it right.
I would say this is probably very hard for Donald Trump to stomach. Or maybe he's relieved that we're not talking about the fact that both Marco Rubio and Mike Johnson have acknowledged that 4 American soldiers were lost because Bibi Netanyahu sent them into harm's way. All because Donald Trump is so eager to play Israel's game that he's willing to launch a war on its behalf. Now, apparently, an attack on Israel, or not even an attack, just a supposed threat that Netanyahu has been talking about his entire adult life, and one that critics argue doesn't even exist, is enough to drag the United States into a full-scale war. A war that could cost us trillions of dollars and American lives. So maybe today Donald Trump is happy that Christine Noem is being questioned about her alleged scandalous sex life. Frankly, I don't even want to think about it. But that's the situation we're in right now. And keep in mind, Noem is also dealing with a fight in Congress over DHS funding. Congressman Mike Lawler, who may have delivered the most unintentionally revealing comment yet about where Donald Trump has left us, said it would be shameful if Democratic leaders like Hakeem Jeffries and Chuck Schumer didn't step in to fully fund DACE after Donald Trump started a war with Iran. Okay, let's break that down. I thought, according to Republicans in Congress, that Kristi Noem was doing a fantastic job, that DACE was fine and running smoothly. But now they're saying DACE needs additional funding because of Donald Trump's war with Iran. So the Department of Homeland Security suddenly needs more money because Donald Trump launched a war. So thank you, Mike Lawler, for essentially admitting that Donald Trump's illegal, unjustifiable war, allegedly tied to political pressure and donor influence, is the reason we're now less secure and being asked to spend even more taxpayer money. I can promise you this, DH funds being used for luxury perks, personal scandals, or insider favoritism won't make anyone safer. But sure, Mike, thanks for clarifying. These people are outrageous, and they need to be called out. That's exactly what we're going to keep doing on this show. If you support that, as always, hit the subscribe button and leave a like on this video. If you made it all the way to the end, drop a blue heart in the comments. Keep fighting, everyone. Don't let them silence you. Until next time, we'll see you soon.